This video was brought to you by Elgato Gaming. If you want to step up your production quality, be it capture card, lighting, a professional face cam, or a stream deck to control your streams, then check out the link in the description. It sounds insane, but a new Call of Duty game has released every single year for 15 years now. And whilst we've had some amazing games, we've also had some not so amazing games. But this video is going to take it one step further by talking about 5 Call of Duty games that the world has never seen. Going into this, I had no idea that these even existed, and I'm sure you guys are going to be mind blown at some of the Call of Duties that we may have actually gotten instead of Modern Warfare and Black Ops. So be sure to watch the whole video to the end so you don't miss out on anything. If you didn't know about any of the cancelled Call of Duty games we're going to go through, let me know in the comments below your thoughts on them, as well as leaving a like. And if you're new around here and enjoy Call of Duty content, then we post tons and we're on the road to 3 million subscribers. Hitting that subscribe button and the bell is free, only takes a second, and gets awesome videos like this straight into your sub feed. But jumping in with the first game, which is easily the most shocking Call of Duty game, which I honestly could not imagine seeing at all, but this game was called Call of Duty Roman Wars, a Call of Duty game set in ancient Rome, which was in development at one of Activision Studios' Vicarious Visions in 2008. This was only unearthed a few years ago by Games Radar, so big credit to them for this information and the gameplay we can see of the game. And it's just bizarre to see that the game featured battle elephant trampling soldiers, a playable Julius Caesar, and first-person sword combat. Now, to put things into perspective, in 2008, Call of Duty was selling incredibly well, and anything attached to that brand could do well in the market. And in 2008, Activision was pitching ideas to studios about expanding the Call of Duty universe because of the success of the franchise. Activision asked Vicarious Visions to work on a prototype game set in ancient Rome, so their whole team working on a prototype they called Fireteam, which was basically a new Call of Duty but with an overhead Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2 camera. So this game had both third-person and first-person perspectives that players could play in. The game featured a straightforward combat system led by shields and swords, and the real work for the combat went into just a shield, sword, block, and parry mechanic, which worked really well. They also had plans for bows, spears, and even the ability to throw sand in the enemy's face. So the demo that Vicarious Visions had to show Activision started off with horse riding and a speech delivered by Julius Caesar. The objective of the mission was to take down the archers, and in the game the tank was basically elephants. You drove it, and if there's any enemies, it can trample them for you. And besides that, you get a better perspective and have some protection because it had its own little booth seat that protected you and that you could duck under. There was also parts of the demo which showed off the first-person perspective and a different setting, and the goal was to have the full game contain a variety of characters and perspectives to show off the Roman century. You were going to jump around from officers to low grunts to Caesar and get a little variety of all of those little battles. So you'd play an archer here, you'd play a cavalry over in this phase, and it was going to stay true to the COD franchise in that jumping around, playing those different characters and getting a whole feel of the overall battle. Now, this prototype was sent to Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick, and it was apparently well received by the executives initially, but there was a lot of uncertainties of releasing this game with the Call of Duty branding on it, and I'm looking at it now and I'm like, this is not Call of Duty. Certain execs were really happy with the idea, but they said it wasn't going to fly with Activision. They're already looking at a different version of COD and they don't want to oversaturate the market, so the game was cancelled. But if any of you are familiar with Rise Son of Rome, an Xbox One launch title that looks incredibly similar to this, there is the market for a game like this, but a Call of Duty themed one just does not sit right with me. But Call of Duty Roman Wars, if this was to drop as a Call of Duty game one year, would you like it? Let me know. The second cancelled Call of Duty game we're going to look at is Call of Duty Devil's Brigade, which was a cancelled third-person shooter for the 360, PS3 and PC, developed by a studio called Underground Development. The game was set in WW2, focusing on Italy, and in the game, the D-pad was used to direct orders to the player's squad, and these commands were assault, barrage, hold the line, and form up. Now, this very brief pixelated gameplay is the only footage that exists of this game thanks to a visual artist called Terry Allen. We do also have some screenshots of the game as well, but aside from that, that is literally all there is to know about it. There are literally 3 weapons that we can tell exist in this game, as well as some equipment and vehicles. From these screenshots, you can sort of tell it's in the COD 4 engine, although it doesn't look as good as Call of Duty 4 obviously. This is probably one of the earliest Call of Duty games we've ever seen a look at, which is wild. But I'm really glad that we still have some gameplay to show that this game did exist at one point. But yeah, a third-person Call of Duty game. That would have been wild, right? Well, funny we mentioned that, as the next game we have on the list is Call of Duty Vietnam, a cancelled installment that was under development by Sledgehammer Games in 2011. Now, out of all the cancelled games we've spoken about so far, this one is definitely what most of you guys will know about, as this game was planned to be an action-adventure game that would have been the first third-person only Call of Duty game. It was in development for 8 months, and it had 15 minutes of playable gameplay, at which point Activision offered Sledgehammer the chance to help Infinity Ward develop Modern Warfare 3 instead. These concept artworks are all we have left of Call of Duty Vietnam, but hey, since the rumors are that Sledgehammer are helping Treyarch with this year's Call of Duty, and it's rumored to be set in the Vietnam era, there is a chance, although probably very small chance, that some of the remnants of Call of Duty Vietnam could make its way into Treyarch's game. This game was stated to be taking place in the 60s and 70s in Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos. And interestingly, in an interview with Game Informer in 2014, Glenn Schofield, who was then one of the co-studio heads, stated that if the studio was ever asked to make a third-person Call of Duty game again, they would continue development on Call of Duty Vietnam. Now, it's been 6 years since then, and we've not had a third-person Call of Duty game, and it's probably for the better, but I'd love to know in the comments below, would you ever want a third-person Call of Duty game? Do you think it would work? Let me know. And if yes, what third-person game do you think they should take inspiration of to base it on? Personally, I think Gears of War works really well as a third-person game, but I couldn't ever imagine Call of Duty going down that route. But our fourth game here in this video, it's going to be a game called Call of Duty Tactics, which was a strategy game being developed by Vicarious Visions. Now, the only footage that exists of this game is a prototype from Vicarious Visions, which shows some gameplay, and you can tell that it is a strategy game. I do have to admit, though, I'm not a huge fan of strategy games, but the game itself doesn't look half bad whatsoever. It also had some great audio design, considering this was a prototype. And whilst it's completely different from the normal Call of Duty that we know and love, there's definitely a huge audience of gamers that enjoy a tactic-based strategy game like this. This is easily the most mysterious Call of Duty because this is literally all we know about it and all we've seen. So we might as well move on to the final one. And this is easily one of the weirdest stories we can tell, because this Call of Duty idea went down so badly that there was actually a lawsuit between Activision and the studio creating it. Just when you thought the drama with IW back during the Modern Warfare 2 days was a big deal, this is nuts. So this game is called Call of Duty Combined Forces, which was a concept of a sequel to Call of Duty Finest Hour, which, if you guys aren't aware of, is based off the original Call of Duty made in 2003, but as the first console installment for Call of Duty on the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox. But weirdly, Finest Hour has a completely different storyline and acts as a side story or expansion to the actual main first Call of Duty game. Combined Forces was supposed to be the sequel to that game, which was pitched to Activision by a studio called Spark Unlimited after their completion of development on Finest Hour. Now, things got really messy here because the game was projected to cost $10.5 million in funding from Activision to complete, and the original Finest Hour game was only supposed to cost $2 million, but actually ended up costing a whopping $8 million by the end after legal encounters with EA in 2003 and other production problems that came around afterwards. And the proposal for the game seemed to describe a game that would be more of an expansion pack rather than a whole new game. And because of it, Activision rejected the proposal and ended their contract with Spark Unlimited, meaning they were never allowed to make a future Call of Duty game. Now, this story gets even messier when you take in consideration that they were contracted by Activision to make 3 Call of Duty products for the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. The first game was Finest Hour, but very awkwardly, the studio founder Craig Allen employed a lot of experienced staff to work on that game and the other 2 games, but many of those staff members hadn't actually left their previous jobs, which were at EA. And as soon as 20 employees from EA suddenly quit, their legal team went into action, filing lawsuits against Spark Unlimited and claimed that its former employees had helped form Spark while still earning paychecks at EA, and further accused them of stealing trade secrets by copying proprietary development software, including source code, libraries of artwork, and internally created tools prior to leaving. And this all happened before development of Finest Hour even began. And when the case was settled in April of 2003, both parties agreed to pay their own costs, leaving Activision to foot the bill for Spark Unlimited's $850,000 bill in legal fees. As development progressed, it was clear that the studio had really bad organizational skills, with Activision having to step in to help them with development with their own team of about 30 workers, calling them a veritable bucket brigade of rescue workers deploying to help work with the small team of talented and hard-working employees who had suffered under the incompetent regime previously set in place by Spark Unlimited. Once Finest Hour was completed, the pitch came for combined forces. And with that $10.5 million in funding price, Activision were unimpressed and felt that Spark had not fully resolved its organizational issues, and the game seemed like an expansion pack. So they decided to wash their hands of the whole affair and rejected the proposal, releasing Spark from working on any future games. An IRL drama alert right there, but that's going to round it up, my friends. If you enjoyed the video, let me know in the comment section. Be sure to subscribe for more. I'll catch you next time.